sorry. Just want to say hello. Yeah. There's going to be a little dancing at the end.
Hoping that'll all be, that we won't need to move.
I don't usually talk in public, so I'm going to read out of my book. Welcome. Thank you for coming to this musical tribute for my mother, Anne. We knew there'd be many competing events this time of year, so quite grateful to all of you for taking the time to celebrate Mom. My mother was quite an active participant in the Bennington music scene beginning in 1970. When we all moved into the house on Park Street. Sage City started that very year, of which Mom was always very proud of being a charter member. Mom became renowned for being rock solid on rhythm, never missing a beat. Something of a human metronome. Even the irascible conductor Lou Calabro looked to her for keeping everyone on track. Mom's quartet of Don Brown, Judy Manis, and Pat Lacello played in our living room every week, pushing us kids into nooks and crannies, attentively listening to the excitement of the music making. Mom played violin, piano sonatas regularly with Tila Zasloff for as long as I can remember, and eventually piano quartets and quintets with her and sometimes her children. Mom taught violin students, the Resch girls, Michael Glansberg, Siggy Reed, as well as being a very serious pupil herself. First with the impatient Italian Lou Tavelli. No, that is all wrong. Then with Lilo Glick. Mom had excellent technique and musical expression and a natural ability to lead. Mom's generous spirit and supportive nature made her many friends, and she was a valued member of the Bennington community. She had a great laugh and a great cry, always expressing her true feelings. Often, though, she despaired at her tone and discomfort holding the violin. Towards the end of her music making, frustrated with Parkinson's, she grew quite upset at these perceived problems. Hear me out, almost done. I had something I wanted to say about this. This past winter, quite by chance, I figured out how to help Mom finally, even though she is no longer here in body. She is in spirit. I studied violin from age 9 with Mom. It was very tempestuous. To the year 2009, when I switched to cello, chronic wrist numbness, neck and chin soreness were the culprit. I never looked back, even taking a few lessons from the legendary Maxine Newman, a favor for my mom, a longtime neighbor of ours. My plan was to play violin music on cello, like I just did there. I forgot how to play violin in the process of learning the cello. The mind just can't do two things. My mind couldn't anyway. After Mom died, there sat her violin. Her wishes had been that her violin be played by someone, maybe a student, a local student. But I leapt at the chance to keep Mom's violin close to me. After some truly terrible sounds, miraculously, all of my violin know-how came back in a flash. It was just unbelievable. Learning cello had helped the problems I had once had on violin and my mom had had. So then I was going to show you this, what I learned to help Mom. So when you hold the violin, this shin rest is supposed to free up your left hand so you can be quite free to just move the left hand however you want. So that was a later development on the violin. The early development was fiddle. You hold entirely with your left hand. So I said, well, there's who's right, you know? So what I figured it was a matter of both and, that you have to really hold the violin with your left hand everywhere. And then lightly with your chin, not so you break your teeth. And you feel very insecure if you really squeeze down at the violin, which was Mom's issue. Because she said, I can't hold it. And you have to become part of the violin with your left hand. So I don't know if you don't play the violin, that might not be clear. But it fixes your tone as well, because it lifts the violin up and you could play on a level. Otherwise, it's down, it's drooping. So to finish up, at the end of my life, I'll be joining Mom in the great beyond, and we'll play duets together again, and we'll sound wonderful. Until then, this is our celebration for Mom. Thank you.
Does everyone have all of the musical pieces? There's 4 pieces. We're going to sing 2 right now. We're going to sing Morning Has Broken and Oh Day. No, we're not singing. Only one. Yeah, my mom, as you can tell, was very musical. This is what she loved. This in her garden, the 2 joys of her life, and her family, of course, too. But she would sing all the time when she's cooking in the kitchen, when she's just in the garden or walking around, she would start singing. And so these 2 pieces that we're going to sing right now are 2 of her favorites. Molly Malone actually was her dad, Emery Wallace. His favorite song was Molly Malone, so she carried that through, and we all learned that. So the first song we're going to sing is Morning Has Broken. And does everyone want to stand up and sing? You all know this song? In Dublin's fair city, where the girls are all pretty, I will first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone, as she filled her wheelbarrow through the streets broad and narrow, riding cockles and mussels alive, alive, oh, alive.
I'm audible. Perfect. Okay. As the eldest grandchild, I was given the weighty responsibility as a baby of naming my grandparents. While my grandfather received a perfectly reasonable title, Grandpa Nate, my infant brain contrived a rather unique diminutive for my grandmother. I called her Ami. I have no idea where the word came from or why I chose it. But to me, my grandmother has always been Ami. I never thought it had any meaning in particular, aside from what I'd assigned the term as a child before I could remember why, though I was asked several times throughout my life why I chose this term. I still don't know. But I recently discovered that in South German dialect, Ami means grandmother, which is an unexpected but charming coincidence, especially as I'm a German professor. My Ami was a complicated and intense woman. I was lucky to have gotten the best of her. Though she was small, fragile last fall, in my mind, she is still like a Viking. She was not even 50 years old when I was born, and throughout my childhood, she seemed to me tall, powerful, and striking. As a child, I stayed with my grandparents several times for extended trips. On one of the early occasions, Ami took me on a walk through the mile-around woods. I must have been 5 years old or something. We paused halfway to have a picnic lunch of almond butter and arugula sandwiches. After, I complained that I was tired and didn't want to walk anymore. Rather than chastising or encouraging me, Ami simply picked me up and plopped me into her big wicker backpack and carried on. This is how I remember her. A pillar of earth-toned fabrics with shining white bob, patient, slow-moving, staid. She was also curious. When I was an hour away at Marlborough College, I came over regularly. Ami would always tell me she knew almost nothing about history, which wasn't entirely true, but it did provide plenty of inroads for me to regale her with my snowballing research on the intersections of 20th century military technology and cultural identity, which she generously engaged in with me. She would tell me about the children's books she was reading, and we would discuss their relevance to her personal development and drink twig tea. I was especially lucky that Ami always reaffirmed that I was good, that I was pretty, that I was loved. I know that I had a unique experience with her, and I witnessed how capriciously her disposition could become volatile and accusatory. For me, however, I only experienced her as a caring, whimsical, and comically snide grandmother. In the years before and after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I spent a lot of time with Ami. We would take long walks and try to untangle the knot of emotions that she clung to so tightly. Insecurity, bitterness, self-loathing, defensiveness. We inspected the callous shield she constructed to protect her from, well, that was the question, I suppose. She was growing. I always knew her as someone who grew. I firmly believe that had her focus and emotions not been robbed from her to a degree by a degenerative disease, she would have reached a more comfortable place of self-acceptance. In my memory of Ami, the calm hands that placed me into a backpack are fused with the intent and curious mind of a woman who truly wanted to understand. I give these parts of her a future in my imagination, concocting hypothetical conversations with my grandmother on my lengthy commutes. I actually speak out loud to her in the car quite a bit. I don't have a good conclusion. I hate writing conclusions and delivering them. And I think in this instance, symbolically, I don't need a conclusion because even though she is physically gone, I carry my grandmother and this version of her with me into the future. And she's been an integral component of who I am as a person. So I'll simply end by saying that I'm really delighted that we're all here together today and that I think the diversity of the people present represent the broad spectrum of my Ami's character and personality. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to be in her life and for her to be in mine. Thank you, everyone.
guess I'll start off this section of remembrances. Oh, you want me to talk to the mic? Hello. You don't know how to play with the mic because, you can do all kinds of things with mics. Anyway, I'm Eric Jonathan. For all those who don't know me, I'm the son of the mother who has passed, the brother of 3 of the daughters. So, I don't really have any memories of mom. I have, stories of what I think are memories, and they might be true stories, but we know what happens with stories. And, as pointed out, she's, whatever she is or was very complicated. And anybody who tries to divine their consciousness into perhaps what a relationship between a mother and a son is in this current time of, it's, slightly inconceivable because of all of this strange layers of artificial projection that we've put onto this soul that is imbued in this physical being that walks to and fro on this earth. So, I was born into this family, and this mother of mine, with her master's of religion from a mother who graduated magna cum laude from Radcliffe in the 20s or something. So these were women that somehow wanted to go into some kind of academic prowess, intellectual knowledge of whatever this soul natural experience is on earth here. And of course, she marries a man whose father is a minister too, who then proceeds to get a master's of divinity. So then what am I supposed to do? So I decide, since my parents just decide to go along with whatever this projected image is that we go along with, then it's my job to break the mold, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm breaking the mold. I'm saying, and this is the problem, or this was the relationship with my mother. This was the mother-son relationship. It's like, as was pointed out in the beginning, my mother was, and will always be larger than life. In her early young years, as a mother who had 4 children, one of those pregnancies, a couple of twins who were almost 8 pounds apiece. So, she had red hair prior to the birth of the twins, and after that it went white, I guess. But anyway, all of us who are living in these times realize that the pull against our soul and our heart to move towards the caricature of whatever our pure divination of the eminence of our existence is, it's kind of a tricky thing. We have all of these religious educational doctrines that are put in, and these taboos and these political correctnesses and all of these things that say, if you're going to be a good son or a good father or a good brother, this is the way you do it. And for me, a certain point at which I decide I'm going to be me, and I am me because of mother, right? She was my greatest mirror and still is my greatest mirror. And as people can attest who was close by, we made quite a ruckus together. And so her greatness, diminished in her later years because her search for her soul, her spiritual inwardness, was overshadowed by this idea that we're supposed to be something as a character in a civilized society on an earth of commercial people. So I tried to convince her that that wasn't necessary. And then she tried to convince me that, I needed to stay with the guidelines. So anyway, she is a great woman. She, in my view, crumpled in her greatness at a certain point, allowed some idea of dis-ease to dominate her connection to the divine eminence of her wholeness. So I get to climb upon her crumpled being and go on from here. And so my remembrance of Mother is that which got me to where I am now. So I'll walk on. Thank you.
Well, and I'd like to introduce two very, very special people that were lifesavers in the last 3 months of my mother's life. Linda, come up here. I want to show everybody who Linda and Morgan are. These two beautiful women were right here next to us, the whole family, the last 3 months of Mom's life. And they just were amazing. Took such good care of her. Such gentle and kindness and persistence, and there's no way I could ever say how happy and proud and thankful I am to the both of you. So they're the hospice team, part of the hospice team. We have a big hospice team, but these two are the best ones. They're wonderful people. So I'm so glad you're here.
I want
Here,
to
have
add-
a little.
I want to add something, a few somethings.
Yes.
These two women, I got to be there with Rebecca.
Yes, Stacy was part of
And
this team.
met Morgan one day coming in and had such an amazing rapport with Nathan that it was really delightful, because it's hard to find somebody who's paid to do this kind of work that immediately jumps in and has this wonderful gregarious personality and humility, and she just did whatever Nathan wanted to do, And Linda came because I came to help, and I said, holy moly, with just all of us here, this is exhausting. It's really tremendous, energetically and emotionally, and I needed more support to be there for Rebecca, to not lean more on Rebecca. So I called up and said, do you have anybody? And they said, no, you can call hospice. So Linda came, and they said she could come 3 times a week. Well, that's like a miracle. 3 times a week, this woman is going to come for an hour and spend time with Anne, totally dedicated just to Anne, not to sweeping the floor or anything. And Linda not only came and was the most gentle being with Anne than all of us, because as I got to know her, I was a little cranky with her.
You're amazing.
At first she called me an angel, and I said, that's because I'm not your daughter,
All
angels, the whole family. But Linda taught us different things. I shared those things with Morgan, who is now on her way to becoming a nurse. And
Yes.
The most beautiful thing that Linda did, because I got some coaching from hospice nurses, because as most of you know, Anne was buried right outside of her garden at home. So she never had to leave her house. And I started researching, well, how do you do that? What happens? And I got different stories from different nurses that were all comforting. But Linda came after Anne, of course, was deceased, and helped me do the very last rite on her own time, because she felt just as privileged and honored as I did to be there to do that.
Beautiful family. Very beautiful. And so my mother's second greatest love was gardening, so here are some tomatoes. Thank you.
This is not actually for me. This is from my grandmother's close friend Tila Zaslav. So I'm reading on behalf of Tila, who couldn't be here today. She writes, Anne is one of my best friends. We have known each other for 40 years and spent so much precious time together in all seasons, playing Bach and piano trios and sonatas, and cherishing the flowers and trees on our walks through the woods around her house in North Bennington. She showed me some of her herbalist secrets, like how to make tea from clover and how a drink made from nettles helped stabilize one's digestion. When we discussed books and music that we both liked, it was obvious that we shared the same view of how to live in this world with all its creatures and our devotion to our families and those we love. And she understood what I was trying to say in my own books and essays. I don't know if she ever read this Mary Oliver poem, but it makes me think of Anne every time I read it. When I am among the trees. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, stay a while. The light flows from their branches, and they call again, it's simple. They say, and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light and to shine. Love, Tila.
So I'm Stacy. And somehow Eric and I have been putting up with each other for about 5 years. The first time I met Anne and Nathan was bizarre in my upbringing. You don't show up at somebody's house, but that's Eric's style sometimes. So we were driving and he said, oh, we're going to go to my parents' house. And it's like, oh my God, really? So we went. They were very wonderful and honest and kind. But I came back up here. I asked Samantha for her permission to kind of continue with one of the statements that she made about her Ami. And it's true, probably about every woman in this room. Not to say that it isn't true about the men in this room, but I'm a woman and Anne was a woman, and I only know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be a man. And what it is compellingly like that she shared with me that very first day that I met her is sort of a struggle with uncertainty about our internal power. And I just thought she was amazing. This woman raised 4 children, lived in this house when I met her, for 50 years, and had this devoted husband. And even when last April came around and Eric and I visited, and then I decided we needed to stay longer, and we stayed longer. And then I decided to stay because she really needed support. I tried very hard to impart to her that her feeling of uncertainty about herself was kind of universal. And one day, Rebecca and Morgan and I were all in the living room with Anne and shared that my mother had the same kind of flaws that Anne did. Turns out Morgan's mother had the same flaws. So it turns out that it's kind of a universal thing of us struggling as imperfect beings to figure out how to live on this path, to live this life that we're so blessed to be given to live. But there are all these distractions, all of these competing priorities, like Eric pointed out, that women go to college to become something greater because somehow we're tricked at being mothers and homemakers. That's not the greatest thing. So I would like Morgan and Rebecca and Samantha and Lindsay and whoever else is a woman here who feels similarly, who can identify that way, to come up here, and Dorothy and Tamara to come up and we kind of hold some space for Anne because I know that she's listening, and she probably thinks that certain things I said were not exactly correct. But would you come up here? Because we're women, so all the women want to come up here. And if we just hold this space, that maybe I know that Anna's doing this work because she was doing it before she left us in October. And, it's when I lost my favorite grandmother, I was very, very sad for a long time. And then I realized this is not what she would want. She would want me to excel in my life and to bring into my daily life all the amazing gifts that she had and resonate with that and be a more powerful woman, especially for my daughter. So, you are. For Anne. Play the song. And all right, if there's no other remembrances, we have some very special people that are going to give us a contra dance, which is another thing my mother loved. So we're going to push back. Oh, before we're going to.
Yes. Sometimes it takes a minute at gatherings to gather courage as well. And there's those awkward silences that happen. We're waiting for the courage of the next. So probably there'll be somebody after me, hopefully. But my name's Alexis, and I wanted to, I called my great grandmother Ami. And I am a friend of the family from childhood. And um I loved this family so much. And I loved Anne, and I loved walking down the road after school with Tammy, my best friend, to the house and snacks that we got. And um just have a lot of memories, and they're from a long time ago, but they're so strong in my heart, and my thoughts of their family are so strong. And so I wanted to bring a little memory of our childhood and a prospect, because we were all these prospect kitties and little radicals that got all wild and weird and got to grow up being wild and weird, and that was okay. So anyway, I'm grateful to be here and see the face of my beautiful friend, and to give condolences and gratitude. Nathan especially helped me for years after with my mom's stuff and my growing up house. So I think we're all lucky to have been touched by this whole entire family, and Anne was a big maker of that team.
Okay, talking about courage to get up here. My name is Susan, and I can't even remember when it was that I met Nathan and Anne. But the way that I was connected with Anne was both through gardening and through music. I play the cello, and Anne forced me to come over and play with her and Tila. And so I did that quite a few times, and they were amazing because they would just run through music. Like there was no stopping of, sometimes I could get them to stop. I was sight reading, and I would play music with other people, and when we would play, we would play it through, and then we'd go through and we'd look at different aspects of it and do different phrases. And like Anne and Tila were like, boom, okay, we did it. Let's go on to the next one, which was really fun and freeing. And I just, when I think of Anne, I think of the epitome of generosity. She really opened those parts of herself to me, with invited me in, I guess is what I want to say. She invited me into the music. She invited me in with gardening, and we shared plants and that kind of thing. So she is just very dear to my heart. And as I said, she's a model for me of generosity.
Yeah, good. As long as we get 8 dancers, we're good to go. Okay. Okay. We just need 2 more people and we're ready to start. What we would call top of the hall, and there's a couple down here at the foot or the bottom. And so you make a set, which is like a rectangle that has 4 corners. The 4 people, 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. So to start this dance, we're going to have what we call the first corners start the dancing. And that would be the person up there on the diagonal there, and you're at the corners. So these are the first 2 corners. You 2 will be the second 2 corners. And pay attention, because as the dance goes along, you're all going to have a chance to be at the top or the bottom. So to begin with, our first 2 corners are just going to walk forward a few steps and bow to one another and then go back up. So 1, 2, 2, and back. Yep. And now second corners, backing up, you can be going forward and you're going to bow. And back. Yes. Now, then the first corners are going to come forward and you're going to go all the way forward and do-si-do around each other. That's passing right shoulders and a little side step and then going back to place. And as they're backing up, second corners, you go forward and do a little do-si-do and back to place. Great. Now, everybody, you're going to do a little right arm turn with your partner, which is that person across from you. Little right elbow turn. Yep. And then a little left elbow turn. And the couple at the top of the set, you'll sashay or parade down the center, so you can do a side step like they're doing, or you can just walk straight down and back, and then you sashay back to the top. When they get back to the top, they're going to let go of one another. They're going to become the line leaders, and we're going to do something that's called casting off, or in modern parlance, peel the banana, because you're like the banana peel, with the top 2 peeling away from each other and walking down the hall, and everybody else follow along. So it's like a banana being peeled. You follow the line leaders, go all the way down the outside of the set. Yep. You 2 will make an arch at the bottom, go down below the arch. Everybody else go below the arch and dive through the arch and up to the top. There we go. Dive through the arch, go up to the top. Yep. Go on through the arch. Oh, did you lose your partner? Ah, ha, ha, ha. And up to the top. Good. And that's the whole dance. First corners go forward, bow. Second corners, bow. First corners, do-si-do. Forward, do-si-do. Second corners, forward, do-si-do. Everyone, right elbow turn.
watch you dance. Thank you, Ben.